So this is a video of me driving to school, running about 10 minutes late, hoping I make it to class on time. During this car ride, I'm jamming out to music and enjoying myself a little bit. The last thing I'm thinking about is the impact this car ride has on the environment. Nonetheless, it has a huge impact. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. What impact does this car ride have for the future of the environment? What does climate change hold for the future?
Okay, so before I actually talk about climate change in the future and how it will be if we continue at the rate we are going, I'm going to touch about climate change in the present. As you all know, climate change has taken a huge impact on us within the past year or so. With all the forest fires, the floods, hurricanes, all these abnormalities which normally do not occur have been very concerning. Speaking more about the forest fires in California and just how bad they were within this past year, July 27th, the largest forest fire was actually the Mendocino complex. This actually covered 410,000 acres and destroyed 157 residencies. This was definitely marked as the largest and worst forest fire, along with many more. The Butte Fire burned 6,974 acres. The Delta Fire burned down 60,018 acres. Just many fires happening back to back, destroying acres upon acres and not giving California a chance to recover at all. Another main issue that has been very noticeable within the past year is the loss of sea ice. Many people have been talking about the fact that it's basically disappearing as the temperatures get warmer. Sea ice is measured every September and has actually decreased about 32% since 1979. This is bad because the ice is actually collapsing and not having a chance to restore itself at all. As the sea ice cover declines, the Arctic atmosphere warms and wind patterns in northern hemisphere shift. Loss of ice increases the risk of erosion along the coastlines and also just takes away the homes of the Arctic animals such as polar bears, etc. As you can see in some films that they do not have any more ice left. I'm going to elaborate more about the future of climate change, which is really what this video is about. As we know, each year, millions of people are driven out of their homes by floods, storms, droughts, and other weather-related disasters, only because climate change is getting worse, meaning weather is getting worse, and natural disasters are getting worse. So many people wonder, what does this mean for the future? If things are so bad right now, what would it be like in 20 years or 50 years or 100 years? What would it be like? As of right now, and going at the rates that we are going, climate change is looking extremely frightful. In that, I mean, heat waves will only increase, which when I looked up what is the future of climate change, heat waves popped up more than anything, which is basically kind of what impacts a lot of things such as sea ice. As you had seen, sea ice is slowly disappearing at a very fast rate, and that's all because of warmth. There's so much warmth and there's not enough cold that it's just literally taking over the planet, and that's due to climate change. It just continues to get hotter. This is one of the things that has already increased at a very exponential rate. Will only get worse if we do not actually take charge of it. So this is the increasing of extreme heat waves. So the heat rising is all due to greenhouse gases accumulating in the atmosphere. Due to that, temperatures will continue to smash records and get worse as time goes on. Heat waves usually not lasting very long, now probably be longer, hotter, and more frequent in the future. For us humans, this is not a good thing, only because how could anyone live in a heat wave? I mean, we walk out in our Florida weather and it almost drops to the floor just walking to our car for about 5 minutes. Imagine living in that heat, 20 times worse. every single day, all day. Extreme heat is actually one of the deadliest natural disasters in the US, killing more people on average, about 600 people per year, than hurricanes, lightnings, tornadoes, floods, earthquakes, all combined. So what happens is normally the body cools itself by sweating, but the difference is with the heat, when sweating, the sweat will evaporate. That quickly leads to heat strokes and nausea and dizziness, and that's just not healthy for anyone. So that means human population would definitely be in concern. Also, agriculture. High temperatures at night can be very damaging to agriculture crops because some crops can just not withstand the type of heat. Also, livestock will also be affected by heat and will have heat strokes. They will be unable to cool at night. Therefore, heat-stressed cattle can experience decline in milk production, slower growth, and reduced consumption rate, which takes away from our food that we are reliant on.
When precipitation patterns or temperatures fall out of the normal range, both crops and livestock are impacted.
So those are just a couple of things affected by heat waves. Okay, so I'm going to talk more in depth about what is actually happening when sea levels rise. So I'm going to explain a couple of things that will be affected. So a main thing that would happen is as the water rises and goes farther up the shoreline, the saltwater gets into the freshwater sources. And two main things that we use as freshwater sources is drinking water for some coastal lands and farming. So these two things, drinking water and farming, are both very important for surviving. And if the salt water gets into the freshwater source for drinking water, that means that the water is contaminated. We cannot drink salt water. So therefore, coastal areas cannot actually use that water, and that starts to limit their sources. And talking about farming, salt water actually kills and harms crops, which therefore takes away our crops. And to create fresh water from salt water is just too costly to even think about when it comes to farming. So therefore, as sea levels rise, we're gonna lose some farming and drinking water sources. And another thing people are upset when hearing is that our wildlife population is threatened. Rising ocean levels erodes the shoreline and floods the area. So this ultimately threatens the animals such as shorebirds and sea turtles and makes them suffer because of the flooding. So those are just three main things to what a rise in sea level would basically do. Obviously there's more effects that sea level would have depending on how much it rises. With anything, it affects a lot of stuff. So I just wanted to give out three main points. So yeah, increased heat and increasing in the sea levels is definitely something that will be of the future for climate change if things do not change. Obviously we hope that things will get better. So now I'm going to just take a minute or two to insert a couple of videos of just how you can help the environment and help climate change to not be so drastic. Even just the littlest things help, because obviously we do not have a good future if we continue at the rate we are. So definitely bringing awareness to it and trying to find better alternatives is key to making a better future for climate change.
One way to help is to drive less when you can. Rather than using your own personal car, try to carpool or use public transportation. You can also help out by recycling and reusing things when you can. This next one might be a little scary to everyone who has ever taken part in the war for the thermostat, but I challenge you to try and let your homes be a little warmer in the summer and a little colder in the winter.